All right, let's dive into Stoicism. You know, that ancient philosophy everyone's talking about these days.
It's really having a moment, isn't it?
It is. So we've got some classic Stoic texts.
Oh, cool.
And today we're on a mission to figure out if this 2,000-year-old wisdom can actually help us live better lives today, like happier, more fulfilling lives, you know?
I'm in. It's fascinating how these Stoic principles, developed in such a different world, still seem relevant.
Right. It's kind of wild. Like, did they have a time machine?
Right.
One of the things I keep bumping into is this whole living in agreement with nature concept.
Yeah.
But honestly,
What does that even
I
mean?
know, right? It's like a bumper sticker slogan. Like, what does that actually look like in real life?
It might sound kind of simple, but it's really like the core of Stoic thought. Think of it this way. The Stoics believed that there was a fundamental order to the universe, a kind of logos, and it governs everything. So to live a good life, for them, meant aligning ourselves with this logos, understanding our place, in the big scheme of things.
So it's deeper than just appreciating nature. It's more about understanding this cosmic order.
Exactly. Recognizing that we're part of something much bigger and that our lives are unfolding like within that bigger picture framework. And it has some pretty big implications for how we deal with all the, you know, stuff that life throws at us.
Okay, that makes sense. And it makes me think about how the Stoics were all about reason.
Right.
Like they saw reason as our superpower for handling anything that comes our way.
Absolutely. They were all about logic.
Yeah.
Like they saw our emotions as something that could lead us astray. But reason was the key to seeing things clearly and reacting effectively,
Mm-hmm.
even, when things get tough.
Okay, so back to living in agreement with nature. How does that actually play out in the real world? Like, I mean, we're not, philosophers in togas pondering the universe.
Right.
We've got deadlines, bills, that weird noise my car's making that I really should get checked out.
Right. I think it's about finding a balance between acceptance on one hand and action on the other.
Okay.
So accepting that some things are out of our control, like the weather, traffic, other people's opinions, whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, recognizing that we do have control over how we respond to those things. So how we frame our thoughts, what actions we take, even when things feel crazy.
So it's like focusing on what we can control, even when everything's chaotic. Instead of freaking out about traffic, I could listen to a podcast
Right.
like this one.
Exactly.
Okay, this is where those four Stoic virtues come in, right?
Yeah.
Courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. Like those are the tools we need to navigate life's challenges.
Right. I think of them as like four pillars of a well-lived life.
I like that.
Courage for the Stoics wasn't just physical bravery,
Yeah.
not just facing down, an enemy on the battlefield or
Yeah.
something. It was about having that strength to face any challenge,
Mm.
internal, external, dealing with a tough conversation or pushing past your comfort zone.
Okay, so it's like that mental resilience we need to deal with all the curveballs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then justice for the Stoics went beyond, just the legal system. It was about fairness, honesty, treating everyone with respect, even strangers.
Gotcha. So living with integrity.
Exactly. Even when no one's looking. Then temperance.
Ah, yes, the no fun allowed virtue.
No, it's not about strict self-denial. For them, it was about moderation, self-control, not, cutting yourself off from pleasure, but not being controlled by it. It's about balance, indulgence versus discipline.
So like having your cake and eating it too.
I guess.
I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean.
Right. And then wisdom, the big one, the culmination of the other virtues. For the Stoics, it was about understanding the true nature of things, being able to tell right from wrong, and making good choices, seeing the bigger picture, beyond your ego and immediate desires,
So like our inner compass. Yeah.
like that.
Okay, I think we've got the basics down. Let's dive into each of those virtues, starting with courage, because that's where our source material starts, right?
Yeah.
One quote that jumps out is from Seneca. Sometimes even to live is an act of courage. Whoa,
Right.
that's deep. What's that all about?
I think it points out that courage isn't always about big, flashy things.
Hmm.
Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just keep going, face each day, especially when you're dealing with loss, or hardship.
It's at that quiet courage, that strength to just get through the day.
Exactly.
I like that. And speaking of quiet courage, there's this Epictetus quote. If you want to be a writer, write. Okay, pretty straightforward, but I feel like there's something deeper there.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about overcoming that fear of starting,
Hmm.
that inertia, and just taking action. It applies to so much more than writing, too. Any goal,
Yeah.
learning a new skill, having a tough conversation.
So pushing past the fear and doubt and just doing it.
Right, that's Stoic courage. Action, not just thinking.
And I keep thinking about that saying, fortune favors the brave.
Yeah.
How does that connect to all this?
Well, I think it recognizes that challenges often turn out to be opportunities, and it takes courage to embrace those challenges, to see the potential. The Stoics believed that luck wasn't totally random. It was about being prepared when opportunity comes along, and it takes courage to be prepared, to be ready.
So it's not just blind faith, it's about being proactive.
Right.
Makes sense. Okay, let's talk about justice. This one seems pretty simple. Be fair, do the right thing, but what's the Stoic spin on it?
Well, what's cool is that they believe justice begins with ourselves, treating ourselves fairly, with honesty, integrity, aligning our actions with our values, even when no one's watching.
So, like that inner compass thing again, making good choices even when you could easily get away with not doing the right thing.
Right. But it goes beyond that. The Stoics believed justice extends outward to our families, our communities, humanity as a whole. There's a great quote from Marcus Aurelius: do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter. Why do you think that's so powerful?
Hmm. I mean, it's so simple, but it's so true. It reminds us that doing the right thing is what matters, aligning with our values. And there's a freedom in that, I think. Like, you know you're doing the right thing, so other people's opinions don't matter as much.
That's a key point. It's about that inner peace from living in line with justice, not needing external validation. It's about knowing, deep down that you're doing right.
So it's deeper than rules and laws. It's
Yeah.
about that deep sense of fairness, even when there's no rule book.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm into the Stoic justice thing. What's next?
Temperance.
Ah, yes, time for that no fun allowed talk.
No, it's not like that. Remember, they believed in living in harmony with nature, and that includes human nature. So they knew we have desires, appetites, emotions. The point was not letting those things control us.
So manage them, not ignore them.
Precisely. Temperance is about balance, finding that sweet spot between, indulging and discipline,
Hmm.
enjoying things without becoming a slave to them.
So, like enjoying a meal without overdoing it, or having fun with friends without it turning into a, week-long party.
Exactly. It's about having a healthy relationship with our desires.
So, mindful choices.
Right. Making sure our choices align with our well-being.
I like that. Okay, this quote about temperance is from Epictetus. Do not seek to have events happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and all will be well with you. Okay, that's tough. Sounds like giving up.
I know. But it's about acceptance, a key part of temperance. I think we suffer because we resist reality.
Hmm.
We want things to be different than they are. And that creates, inner conflict.
So accept what you can't control.
Yes. Free yourself from unnecessary suffering. Find peace.
So choosing your battles. Focus your energy on what you can influence.
Exactly. It's recognizing that difference between what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, and what you can't, and focusing on what's within your power.
Okay, now it's sounding like the serenity prayer. Accepting what you can't change, courage to change what you can,
Yeah.
and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, there's a connection there. It's about finding that inner peace from accepting reality.
But that takes self-control, right?
Yeah.
Especially when the world tells us we should have it all and control everything.
Absolutely. It's radical,
Yeah.
but liberating too. Surrendering to what is, accepting those limits. It frees you from that constant striving.
It's about being content in the moment, rather than always chasing or resisting.
Yes. Finding that stillness in the chaos, calm in the storm.
Okay, last one. Wisdom, the big kahuna. What's the Stoic take on that?
So wisdom for the Stoics, it was about understanding things for what they really are, discerning right from wrong, acting on that understanding.
It sounds like more than just being smart.
Right.
It's about applying knowledge, making wise choices, living in line with your values.
Absolutely. And it's not something you're born with. It's a lifelong process. Learning, growing, self-reflection. You study philosophy, learn from people who are wise, examine your own life.
So not just book smarts.
Right. It's lived wisdom from experience and reflection.
I like that. There's this idea in the texts that things like wealth, reputation, even health, those things aren't essential to being happy. That's a tough one for modern society. Because, I mean, the message everywhere is you need more stuff to be happy.
It does challenge our assumptions. But it's not that those things are bad. It's that they shouldn't be the basis of our happiness. Because really, they're not in our control.
Okay, so enjoy the good things, but don't hinge your happiness on them.
Right. Focus on what you can control. your character, your choices, then you're less vulnerable to the ups and downs of life. You find a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment.
So it's about taking back control of your own happiness.
Absolutely.
I love that. Okay, we've covered a lot. Living in agreement with nature, the four virtues: courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. It's like we've got a whole toolbox for living better. But I have to admit, actually putting those virtues into practice in real life, it feels kind of daunting. Talking about being courageous or just is easy, but doing it, not so much. What do the Stoics say about how to make this stuff work in the real world?
Well, they were really practical about their philosophy. Like, they didn't just talk about it, they lived it. Remember, living in agreement with nature?
Yeah.
Well, the virtues are how we achieve that harmony.
Okay, so it's about like embodying that order,
Yeah. Each virtue is a path toward that.
like a moral compass.
Exactly. To help us make good choices, even when things are complicated.
But how do you actually cultivate these virtues? It's easy to say be more courageous, but how do you actually do it?
They believed you can strengthen virtues just like you strengthen muscles. It's practice and repetition. Consistency. Effort. Like a workout.
So it's like mental workouts for our virtue muscles.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so give us some workouts, starting with courage. What's the first exercise?
Well, one way is to pick a virtue to focus on each day or week. So for courage, you might challenge yourself to step outside your comfort zone a little bit each day. Just small steps.
Okay, so like building those courage muscles. What would that look like? For you, I mean.
For me, public speaking has always been a challenge. So I started with presenting in meetings. Then I joined a public speaking group. Gradually, the more I did it, the more comfortable I got.
Right.
Maybe for you, it's speaking up more in meetings or finally starting that creative project you've been thinking about.
I get it. Identify where you feel hesitant, then push yourself a little. Okay, what about justice? How do you practice that beyond just following the rules?
I try to see things from other people's perspectives, even if I don't agree with them. It's easy to get stuck in our own little bubbles, but justice means stepping outside ourselves.
Cultivate empathy, even when you disagree. That's hard these days.
It is, but it's important.
Yeah.
And it can be as simple as really listening to someone,
Mm.
really trying to understand where they're coming from.
It's remembering everyone has their own story, their own experiences.
Exactly.
Okay, how about temperance? Any tips for, like, not overindulging?
Well, I set boundaries around things that I know can get out of control,
Mm-hmm.
like social media. I set time limits, and I make sure I'm doing other things,
Mm-hmm.
things that nourish me. It's not about denying yourself everything, just finding that balance.
Okay, so knowing your triggers and setting up guardrails so you don't go too far.
Right. And it's not just external boundaries. It's about inner discipline,
Mm-hmm.
being able to say no to yourself, even when you really want to say yes.
So build up that mental muscle to resist urges.
Exactly.
Okay, last one. Wisdom. It feels like the hardest one. Any tips for that?
Yeah, it's a lifelong thing. But one way to start is to just be more curious. Ask questions. Read. Seek out different points of view. Talk to people who challenge your assumptions.
So stay open to new ideas, even if they make you uncomfortable.
Yeah. They believed wisdom was about constantly searching for deeper understanding. Recognizing that you don't have all the answers. Being willing to learn from others. Even people you disagree with.
So it's embracing that journey of learning.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these four virtues to guide us. We're actively practicing them, strengthening those virtue muscles, as you said. But how do we know if we're actually living in agreement with nature? Like, what does that feel like?
Well, it's different for everyone, but I think there are some common signs. Like, you feel more at peace, more content, more accepting, even when things are tough.
Like you're less reactive, more grounded.
Exactly. Your relationships might even get better
Right?
because you're more compassionate, more understanding, more forgiving.
So it affects everything.
Yeah, I think so. It's not just about you. It's about the people around you, too.
I see how all these virtues are connected.
Right.
It's not about mastering one or two. It's about integrating them all.
That's what's so cool about Stoicism. It's about the whole human experience.
And it's not about being perfect, right? It's about progress.
Exactly. A lifelong journey. You'll stumble, make mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's about learning and keeping moving forward.
This is so inspiring. Like, Stoicism gives us a framework for finding meaning and purpose even when everything feels crazy.
It's about building a better life for yourself and for other people.
I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Me too. It's been great. Welcome back. We're in the middle of exploring those four Stoic virtues, courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom, like how they can be our guide for life's tricky parts. What's been standing out to you so far?
Honestly, it's that these virtues aren't just like ideas, they're tools
Mm.
for living better, facing challenges, but gotta admit, putting them into practice, it feels a bit overwhelming. Talking about courage or justice is one thing, but actually doing it.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's where the Stoics get real. They weren't just like philosophers in an ivory tower.
Right.
They wanted to make this stuff actionable, like steps you could take. Remember, living in agreement with nature. The virtues are how we do that.
So it's about like embodying that order in the universe through our actions.
Exactly.
And each virtue gives us a way to do that.
Each virtue is a different angle, a different way of approaching stuff.
So like a moral compass to help us when we're not sure what the right thing to do is.
Yeah, I like that. A framework for making decisions that fit with our values, even when things get messy.
But how do we actually develop these virtues? It's easy to say be more courageous, but how do you actually do it?
The Stoics believed you build them up like muscles. Practice, repetition. Like any good workout, you got to be consistent, put in the effort.
Mental workouts. I love that. But what are the exercises? Give us the Stoic workout routine.
Well, you could focus on one virtue each day or each week, whatever works. So say you're working on courage. You challenge yourself to do one small thing every day that pushes you a bit.
Okay, so small steps, like building up those muscles. What does that look like for you?
For me, it was public speaking. Terrified of it. So I started small, volunteered to present meetings, joined a public speaking group. Gradually, it got easier.
Right.
Maybe for you, it's speaking up more assertively or starting that project you've been putting off.
Okay, I see how that works. Find where you hesitate, then push a little. What about justice? How do you actually practice that?
For me, it's trying to see things from the other person's point of view, even when I disagree with them. It's easy to get stuck in your own head, but justice means getting out of that.
Empathy, even when you disagree. So hard these days.
It is, but it's so important. It can be simple, like really listening. Try and understand where they're coming from.
Remembering they have their own story.
Exactly.
Okay, temperance. Any tips for, like, moderation, self-control? The world's full of temptations.
I set boundaries, especially around things that can, like, suck me in. Social media, for me, time limits.
Yeah.
And I make sure I'm engaging with other stuff, things that actually feel good. It's not about total deprivation, just balance.
Okay, so knowing your weaknesses and setting those guardrails.
Exactly. But it's not just the external stuff. It's inner discipline, too. Like being able to say no to yourself.
Building that mental muscle to resist those urges.
Right.
Okay, last one. Wisdom. It feels like the hardest one. Any practical advice for that?
It's a long game, but start by being curious. Ask questions. Read. Seek out different perspectives. Talk to people who disagree with you.
Stay open to new ideas, even if they make you uncomfortable.
Yeah. They thought wisdom was about always seeking deeper understanding, recognizing that you don't know everything.
Humility.
Right. Being open to learning from anyone, even those you disagree with.
Embracing the journey of learning. Okay, so we've got these 4 virtues as our guides. We're working on them. But how do we know if we're actually living in agreement with nature? Like, what does that feel like?
Hard to say exactly. Everyone's different. But there are common threads, like more inner peace, a feeling of contentment, acceptance, even when things are hard.
So, less reactive, more grounded.
Right. Relationships get better. You're more compassionate, understanding, forgiving.
So it affects everything.
It does. It's
Yeah.
not just you. It ripples outward.
It's amazing how these virtues connect.
Yeah.
It's not about mastering just one. It's about the whole picture.
Stoicism is about the whole human experience.
And it's about progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly. We're all works in progress, always learning.
This is so inspiring. Like, Stoicism gives us this framework for finding meaning and purpose, even when everything feels chaotic.
And it's about taking action, building a better life for yourself and others.
Well, I'm feeling ready for part 3. What do you say?
Let's do it. We've got more Stoic wisdom to uncover.
Okay, welcome back to our Stoic deep dive. We've explored courage. Now let's talk about justice. It's easy to think about justice in, like, big terms, but I'm curious about what it means in our everyday lives. What did the Stoics say about that?
Well, they were really practical. They believed that justice wasn't just some big abstract idea.
Right.
It was about how we act in our everyday lives. Remember that quote from Marcus Aurelius? Do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It gets to the heart of it, I think. Making choices that align with what you believe is right, even when it's hard.
So simple, but so powerful. It's about aligning your choices with your values.
Exactly. And for them, it started with yourself, being honest with yourself, having integrity. Like if you're not just in your dealings with yourself, you can't really be just with anyone else.
It's like you can't give what you don't have. You got to cultivate that fairness within yourself first. But how do you even know what the right thing is? Life's not always so clear cut.
That's a good point.
Mm.
It can be tricky. And even though the Stoics were all about using reason, they knew empathy was important too.
Mm-hmm.
To act justly, you got to see things from the other person's side.
So put yourself in their shoes, even when you disagree. Man, that's tough these days. Everyone's so divided.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. But it's key to creating a more just world. It's not about winning arguments or being right. It's about understanding and finding solutions that work for everyone.
Finding common ground.
Yeah, exactly. Solutions that respect everyone involved. So it's not about imposing your will on others, it's about honoring everyone's well-being.
I like that. It's about expanding your perspective, building bridges instead of walls.
You got it. The Stoics saw justice as this unifying force, creating a more harmonious world where everyone matters. And it starts with small acts of kindness, compassion, fairness, really listening to someone, speaking up for those who need help, making choices that benefit the whole community, even when it's hard.
It's those everyday actions that add up, right? They inspire others to do the same.
Absolutely. Little by little, we can make a difference. Justice isn't just some lofty ideal. It's about living it out in our daily lives.
Okay, I'm fired up to go be more just. But before I do, let's talk about temperance. This one gets a bad rap, like it's all about denying yourself. But the Stoics didn't see it that way, did they?
No, not at all. They understood that we're human, we like pleasure, enjoying good things is part of life. But they also knew that too much of a good thing can be bad.
Yeah.
So temperance, for them, was about finding balance, enjoying things without being controlled by them.
So it's not about cutting out all the fun. It's about having a healthy relationship with, food, drinks, entertainment, all that stuff.
Exactly. It's about making mindful choices that are good for you in the long run, not just giving in to every impulse.
So savoring a good meal without overeating, having fun with friends without, going overboard. It's about enjoying the experience without being consumed by it.
Right. It's not just about willpower, though. The Stoics had strategies for managing those impulses that can lead us off track, like, avoiding temptations, practicing delayed gratification, changing how you think about things you want.
So it's about setting up those helpful structures, those boundaries, those
Yeah.
practices that help you stay on track.
Yeah, good analogy. It's like those bumpers in a bowling alley, right?
Yeah.
Keep you from ending up in the gutter. And it's not just external stuff, it's that inner discipline, too.
Building up those mental no muscles.
You got it. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. You get that sense of self-mastery, You're in control, not your desires.
And that brings peace.
Yeah, I think so. A deep sense of peace.
This has been so insightful. I'm definitely going to be thinking more about temperance. But for now, let's tackle our last virtue, wisdom, the big one. What did the Stoics say about that?
Wisdom for them was about understanding the true nature of things, seeing the bigger picture, making choices that lead to a good life. Not just for you, but for everyone.
So it's more than just knowledge. It's about applying it.
Exactly. And they didn't think it was something you were born with. It was a lifelong journey, learning, growing, reflecting.
So constantly learning and being humble enough to know you don't have all the answers.
Absolutely. Being open to new ideas,
Sure.
even if they challenge your beliefs.
There's that Stoic idea that things like wealth and fame aren't essential for happiness. That goes against everything we hear these days.
I know, right? It's a different way of thinking. But it doesn't mean you can't enjoy those things. Just don't let your happiness depend on them because, they can disappear.
So enjoy the good things, but don't base your happiness on them.
Right. Focus on what you can control, your character, your choices. Then you find a deeper peace, regardless of your circumstances.
It's like taking back control of your own happiness.
Exactly. Shifting your focus from what you have to who you are.
Wow.
That's powerful. Okay, I think we've covered it all. Living in agreement with nature, the 4 virtues: courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. It's amazing how much wisdom the Stoics offer.
It's a gift that keeps on giving, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
But the real work starts now, I guess. Taking these ideas and putting them into practice in our own lives.
I think that's the key. Experiment. Find what resonates with you and see how it changes your life. So, listeners, I challenge you. Choose one of those Stoic virtues this week and make a conscious effort to live it out. Notice those opportunities to put it into practice. Maybe it's speaking up for what you believe in, setting healthy boundaries, or just taking a moment to pause before reacting.
It might surprise you how powerful those ancient principles can be in our modern world.
That's a great thought to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Stoicism. Keep learning and keep living those virtues.